Atakwashi told me. One of them was that, again, at Adabraka, he used to say that, he used to say it in Ga. He says that, Keo Papa Chubo, ake ya eko mikeke dankeba, noti do ya he fufuike wunu keba. It means you have not actually obeyed the command of your father. In normal terms, it's like your father asks you to go and buy kinky and fish, then you go and buy fufu and soup. That means you have not been able to actually done the will of your father. In our terms here, it's like you have come from inner world with a clear mission, and then you get into the outer world, and because of the things of the world, you begin to feel like distracted. And so the purpose for which you came, you cannot actually execute it. And that is one of the first lessons I learned. Then the second one, he told me that a spiritual path is not a wishy-washy affair. It's like you choose when to do things. But once you get engaged on the spiritual path, it means you have to do everything according to the laws of nature. For instance, you don't choose when to meditate. Once you have set the time, it's like an agreement between you and God. Maybe every morning, 4 o'clock, 4:30, you set the time, it must be that time. Evening time, you set the time, it must be that time. But don't decide when to do it. So that's also one great thing which I learned from him. Then the last one, we're having a chat, then he said, for me, if you fight with me and you break me into pieces, I'll collect all the pieces and put them together and continue to fight with you. And we had a laugh over it the other day, last Sunday, with anti-peace. So these are some few memories which I had with them. I'm saying this because I was not here to maybe talk about it when they were to be buried. Then, coming to the main theme which I have for today, I chose the topic, proper study of the nature of conscious life, which is the same as consciousness, which is one of the pillars of CSA. And I chose that because I've seen a lot of problems which are arising these days, bordering on we not learning a lot about life. The 4 pillars, or the pillars upon which CSA is actually based or hinged upon, one is self-discipline, which is very, very critical to the survival of every aspirant. The other one is the proper study of the nature of consciousness. Then you have absolute reliance on God and meditation. Now, I chose this topic because last Tuesday also, when we came for prayer council session with Reverend, he narrated a story about some issue which he had, and that issue triggered in me my own personal issue, which is like in response to what he said. Talking about listening and acting accordingly. I think at one time when I was at sea, I was not like serious with life. And somewhere in 1992, I was like a second officer. When I say a second officer, after the captain, there is one rank, a chief officer, then a second officer. So like number 2 after the captain. And I was feeling like becoming a little too fat. So I said, well, let me trim down a little bit. At that time, we used to play table tennis on the ship, and I was a champion. So everybody wanted to play with me when the least opportunities obtained. So that one alone was not enough. So I started to drink tea and lime. I was thinking at that time the lime was lemon. And I was drinking it for a longer time. And then 2-3 months later, I realized that I used to go to ease myself every 10 minutes. And if I put food inside my mouth, it goes down into the stomach. Within 30 minutes, it will be running down. So what is happening? So I couldn't tell anybody. I was at that time thinking that I was seriously sick, probably, maybe. You know, those days they say if you have that sort of problem, you have AIDS or something like that. I was thinking that way. So I couldn't tell anybody. Then it came to a point where even when I'm on duty, the duty time was around midnight to 4 a.m. and the whole ship will be left in my hands because the master, the other officers, the crew, everybody will be sleeping. And I became a little bit uncomfortable because when I go maybe 10 minutes, I'll be leaving my co-worker there who is not a senior person as far as I'm concerned. So I took it like, well, let me keep it until I get home, because if they ask me to go and do any test and something happens, it will be a problem. At that time, when I go to the loo, what actually comes is like okra. And I was wondering where from this okra. I've never eaten okra also. Not knowing all the lining inside my stomach is what was coming out at that time. The whole lining, came out. And if I sit with you, like I'm sitting close to Reverend, if you listen carefully, you hear all the machinery inside my stomach pounding like a factory. So I felt a little bit uncomfortable sitting with people. And that was the first time I realized that we were thinking that inside the stomach everything is silent. But the sound which goes on inside the stomach is really not that silent, because I think that slimy thing which was there was dampening the sound and so on and so forth. So this is one reason why I raised this topic about proper study of the nature of consciousness. This is a small part. Why? Because this simple thing, I couldn't understand what was lemon and what was lime. Because, during those days, anytime we used to have Easter, from Thursday evening, Reverend would say we need to do a cleansing fast, and that cleansing fast will be lemon, honey, and, this bottled water, which we'll drink from Thursday evening. Our last meal should be before 6. And then through Friday, Saturday, then we'll resume Sunday evening. So that thing was there, but I didn't pay particular attention. So I paid a heavy price for that. And I couldn't also feel pain in any part of my body. So it's like, well, I'm eating my normal food, kenke, shito, and all those things, and so on. And at one point, I realized that this whole thing started subsiding. That means the rate at which I was easing myself was controlled, and the whole thing, the sound and everything stopped. So it taught me one bitter lesson. From that day onwards, I learned the actual difference between lemon and lime, but that was the hard way. Then also, there was this issue about one time also, when I was talking about a time when I was at home for almost 17 months, that time, anytime I woke up, after I think 1 year, there was nothing on my mind except how to go back to work. Even it's like I couldn't get time for meditation and so on. And I said to myself, if I don't get this work, probably maybe the next thing will be that my whole family is going to break down. But I think somewhere I had a job between May and July. But before that, I had a colleague. This colleague went to the port in Tema, and he, I think, was doing something, and then they requested his help to take a ship from Tema to Nigeria. And when he accepted the job, he called me. I went to meet him on the ship. And after some time, they inspected his documents for the job. The documents were all expired. So in the evening, I was at home, then he called me. And when I went, it appears that my documents were in order, so I took the job. When we got to Nigeria also, I realized that that place is not for me. But I was already there, and there was not much I could do. So I had to work with them. The reason why I said that place was not well with me was that the mindset of the people there is like, you know, let's corner this, let's do this, and so on. Those things also, my heart was not there. So after some time, my company also called me. Now to get out from that area became a problem. I didn't know what to do, so I threw the whole thing to my family to, ask for me to come home because maybe there's some urgent issue. The owner of that company agreed because I was also due for vacation. It was then 2 months and 1 month vacation. So when I came home, I went straight to the company, and I think they were of the opinion that the reason why I've delayed was because they have sold most of the ships, and the whole structure has to be a little bit slowed. I'm saying this also because if I had been doing the meditation very well at that time and everything was going well, I would have known that probably these are times when I need to be a little more careful. But, so in short, it is like I learned a bitter lesson because I was not paying particular attention to the study of the nature of consciousness. Now, when we come back to this whole issue, it is not like you are taking a book to read a book to understand what is nature of consciousness. But it is also based on the fact that the pillars upon which CSA was formed is also about meditation. So because I was not very regular with meditation at that time, the whole thing appears as if I was being set back all the time. So if you really want to know more about life, it means you need to have deeper meditation and have that relationship with God. Why I'm saying this also is because most of the time, if you are sitting down and thinking about your own self, that is self alone, and not wanting to expand in life, then it will be like you are becoming more myopic than what life expects you to be. There was a little boy who was living close behind my window in Nigeria. And when he was born, I think I was observing him, the mother and the father, about that little boy. And what I realized is that children are a little sensitive about their growth. When he was born, he was very much close to the mother and father, and as his eyes were becoming opened, he realized that there was somebody very close to their door who used to call him from the window. So he got also like interested in me. So anytime I come from school, he knows the time I'll be home, and he'll be shouting my name from the window. So sometimes I used to go there, buy some biscuits and some soft drinks and so on for him. And slowly, he started coming to our room itself to come and say hi or something like that. This also shows that this boy is having that expansion in consciousness, which means we were not born to have that small mind, but we were born to expand. And expansion basically is not about the way you look at life around you, but every time of your life, you need to go into meditation until you have grown bigger and embrace the totality of life. Sometimes we talk about Jesus, and we say that he is like the only child of God, as some of the pastors will say, and so on and so forth. It is not that Jesus is different from any of us, because he himself said that the things that he has done, all of us can also do. And that, to me, is the greatest teachings I have received from Jesus. And I also think that if we want to develop to be like him, as it is the pass mark for each and every one of us, then we need to be like him. But the point is, are we studying life the way he studied it, to a point where we can be able to reach the level at which he has reached? So, in short, what I wanted to put across today is that we are not here in this world to look at life from the small aspect of our lives, but to grow bigger and bigger and bigger until we can encompass the whole of life as one. Also, we should understand that one of the principles shared here is that we came from inner space, and to inner space we will return. But the point is, how do you return to inner space? Because you have to eventually mix up with what is known as the ocean of life, which is God. God is really too pure for you to come and mix with him with impurity. And even if you go to God with that impure aspect of your life, whether you mix with God to be called pure or you mix with God to become impure, I think it doesn't make sense to me. So that is why all the purifications we are making, everything we are talking about here in CSA, is just to make sure that our cleansing processes takes place to a point where we would be able to, actually feel that, oh, really we are now close to God. But if you take life in general now, even there are so many illnesses which are on the increase. Sometimes I hear some of them and I get shocked, and I don't want to mention most of them, but you could feel that basically it is about the way we react to life, the food we eat, the sort of attitude we show, and so on and so forth. So if you study life properly, the way I see it is that most of these problems will never come in the first place. So the fundamental issue is that if you want to live long, if you want to be in harmony with life, you should have time to study the principles of life to a point where you know that, this thing, if I do it, this will be the result. This thing, if I touch it, this is what is going to happen. But just going through life the way everybody is going and so on and so forth, I don't think it is the best way to, live as those of us who have been taught everything about truth. So, in short, this is the message which I have for today. Thank you.